Welcome to Developing Enterprise-Ready Plugins. My name is James Richard. I'm here with Black Duck Software. So we're talking about enterprise-ready plugins. So the theme we're going to go with is Star Trek, obviously. So what we'll be talking about today, we'll be talking about what enterprise-ready is when it comes to Jenkins plugins. We'll be talking about the credentials plugin. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it's a standard plugin in Jenkins. It provides you the ability to store your credentials globally, and it also encrypts the passwords for you, or at least obscures them so that you're not storing passwords in clear text. We'll also be talking about REST APIs in Jenkins, using the UpdateSite manager for internal distribution of your plugins, and we also have a free offering that we're distributing today. So I'll give you a sneak peek at that. Hopefully some of you are interested. So who am I? I'm a developer at Black Duck Software. I do mostly Jenkins plugins. This is my 5th one I've developed and released. We mostly deal with the enterprises, banks, telecom, automotive companies. I'm also responsible for 2 other plugins outside of Jenkins, and soon to be 4 others, all on the roadmap coming up. So what is Black Duck Software? What we do is we deal with open source software, obviously. We deal with the licenses that they are under, any risks that are involved in using those open source software libraries, including the dependencies that you have and maybe the dependencies that come from the dependencies that you're using. We also catalog applications, so that way, instead of going and finding on the internet software that you might use, but you don't know what licenses they're under or risks they have, we catalog that for you. So all you have to do is search through our list, and you know what is already in that without having to do any more research on your own. We also have a workflow that you can go through to request software, and a manager can go through and approve and disapprove and create a whitelist and a blacklist so that it removes a lot of that work that goes into it. And we also deal, obviously, in vulnerabilities and security risks. So why do we care about Jenkins? Jenkins is helpful for us because a lot of the source is already there along with the binaries. So when we are doing our scanning, it's all in one place. We don't have to do a lot of looking. It's very easy for us to automate our scanning processes and our other products. So obviously we care about automation. It's continuous, so you know about new risks that comes in, new licenses that you're using, and also any conflicts that come with that. We care about governance and control, stop and go, and a lot of our customers use Jenkins, so obviously we care about it. So what is enterprise ready? It's a big ship. It's a lot more work than you'd expect. You need to support master and slave jobs. So not only are you worrying about the jobs that are running on the master server, but also on the slave. And that comes with a lot of remoting problems. You have to move files around, deal with different workspaces. And you also need to support the different job types. So right now there's the Maven jobs and the freestyle jobs, and there's also the new workflow jobs that you have to support. And like I talked to you before, you don't want to be storing passwords in clear text. So obviously using the credentials plugin is a smart way to go so that you don't have to do all that work yourself. It's already done. It's a standard plugin in Jenkins, so just use it. You also want to have your configurations very minimal. Having a large configuration is very confusing for customers. You want to keep it as simple as possible. You don't want to recreate your own UI within Jenkins, because that just makes it confusing. Customers don't like that. And you also want to be able to script jobs and create jobs from other jobs. A lot of our customers and enterprises do this already, but when you're developing plugins, the global configuration is not capable of doing this automatically. The jobs are, but when you have a global storage of information, you have to make sure to add some code in order to do that. Version migration is also a problem. So as an example, we've had plugins that we released and then decided, hey, maybe that wasn't the best idea. We used a builder type when we should have used a post-build action. So what we would have to do is not just send out a new version, but also create a brand new plugin. And when customers see that, it's a little confusing, but we've developed tools around that using the REST APIs in order to make that migration as simple as possible. And we suggest you do the same. It's a lot of work, but your customers typically like when you help them migrate. All right. Using the REST support, what we do is we script our job creations. So when we are testing our plugins, we want to test it in many different environments in Jenkins. So we don't know what our customers are going to be using. So we create jobs with all different types of plugins configured, running all different things in the same job as our plugin, so that when they're messing with the environment, our plugins are able to handle it at the same time. So how we do this is we create tools to batch create jobs in different environments. So we set up a Jenkins server, and we run this tool with the different jobs already set up in that. And this creates hundreds of jobs at once using the REST APIs. And that allows us to test our plugins in different versions of Jenkins using different versions of other plugins. So we highly suggest that you do the same so that when your plugin is working in a job that's configured with somebody else's plugin, you're not running into class loading problems and things like that. So what is the credentials plugin, and why does it matter? Well, it's logical. So like I said before, you don't want to be storing passwords in clear text. It's already part of Jenkins. It's a standard plugin. Manages username and passwords and SSH keys. You define the credentials once, and then you could use them throughout Jenkins. They're available everywhere. All you have to do is add a little code, and you could make them available through the UI, or, you can make them available in the UI. And you don't even need to know what the actual password is when you're picking credentials. You just need to know the username, and usually when you define the credentials, you give them a nice description. That way the user knows what they're dealing with. So talking about that Protex plugin before, how we had to migrate, this was our original configuration. You can see we had to define a server URL, username, password, and we had to do this for every job. And this was kind of a pain for customers because if it's the same username and password and the same server URL for every job, they have to re-enter this every single time. And people did not like that. So what we did is we created a global storage for the servers. So once it's defined, a user can go into the job and configure it, and it's in a drop-down, and all they have to do is choose it along with the credentials. So they don't have to re-enter that information every single time. And then adding credentials is as easy as clicking that add button and entering it in, giving it a nice description, say it's for this specific server, and it's ready to use. To make that drop-down list for this, for the credentials available, all you have to do is add the code in red. You add the library for the credentials and the C-select, and it's that easy. Now you have a drop-down in the UI with all the credentials available. And then populating that list in your descriptor is just, here's a code example of how to do that. It's very simple. There's a lot of plugins out there that do it. And the slides will be available, so if you want to add credentials, here it is. So supporting the REST API, I talked a little bit about why and how we did it. Yeah, like I said before, the global configuration doesn't automatically support this, so you have to do a little work to do it yourself. The REST APIs for the jobs are available. You could automatically do them, create jobs, update them, but your global configuration takes a little work. The reason we suggest this is because it's convenient. It makes it easy to create jobs. You can create hundreds of jobs at once and reproduce that same system in many different Jenkins servers. And also, if you need to make changes, this also allows you to do that. So in the descriptor, if you want to make your global configuration updatable or retrievable, here's another code snippet that you would throw in there. And what this is doing is when a GET request comes in, it is going and retrieving the config file and then producing it for the user. And when you're trying to update the information, it's also handling that. But you have to do a little work to parse out the request and save it correctly. Question? No? So this is an example update. So this is a descriptor you would hit for your global configuration. And here's just an example XML format of an update. So say I didn't want to use the same URL. I would change the URL here, post it to that URL shown above, and it would automatically update it. Going back to the UpdateSite manager that I talked about in the agenda, what this is an open source plugin that allows you to distribute your plugins. Say you don't want to open source them and make them available on the Jenkins open source list. You can create your own update site and allow users to get new updates without open sourcing your plugins. It's not our plugin, it's an open source software plugin that's out there. We use it internally at Black Duck. So when we have new versions of our own plugins and we want to use them throughout our company, all we have to do is update the update site. Everybody goes into the Jenkins server in Manage Plugins in the Advanced section and hits Check Now, and they automatically get the updates from our update site. So in Jenkins, when you want to add new update sites, you would see in the configuration of Jenkins, you would see Manage Update Sites from this plugin. And you would see the default Jenkins update site, and along with any others that you may add. And when you do that Check Now in the Advanced section, it'll check all of these update sites to get updates for plugins. And this is an example of how to configure one of those update sites. So you provide the ID, the URL where it's coming from, any notes, descriptions of that update site, and any CA certs that you may need. How much work is it? So basically what you would have to do is deploy your plugins to an Artifactory or Nexus or some binary repository, index that repository, and then run the update site generator, which is an open source code, and then you're done. You provide the URL to your users, any certificates they need, the ID, and they add it as I showed previously, and then they get the updates automatically. And the update sites have Jenkins has a Confluence macro. So when you're creating wikis for your plugins, it automatically creates that info box that everybody sees in the wiki pages of plugins, and it populates that information and gives you statistics of downloads and things like that. It's very useful information. I just want to say thank you to Akita Yasuyuki, who created the Update Site Manager plugin. It's great. We use it all the time. We suggest you use it too. So our free security offering, if anybody's interested, do you mind a little advice? Okay, so for a developer using open source software components, typically when they're picking open source software to use, these are the questions they would go through. Does the component do the job that I want? How well documented is it? Is it the latest version? Is it memory efficient? They don't really care about the licenses or the risks that are involved. And as a manager, same thing, but a little bit differently. They care about the licenses. They care if it's secure. And they also care if they've already shipped code that has risks. So if a vulnerability like Heartbleed comes out, they want to know if they're using it and where. So what our new vulnerability report plugin does is during the Maven and Gradle builds in Jenkins, it captures the dependency resolution from those builds, and it gets all the transitive dependencies of your dependencies. So it gets that full list, and then it sends it out to our match service, which matches those components to open source libraries that we know about in our knowledge base. And what you get back in the UI is a nice report including all of the licenses and all the vulnerability counts. Unfortunately, we only provide the counts. If you want more information, you would have to do that manually. And this is all coming from the National Vulnerability Database with the CVEs. So basically, the point of creating this plugin is that you get a quick peek into your code with every build, and it does it automatically. You could detect these risks early and act on them so that it reduces your costs. You don't have to scramble later on and spend hours and hours and hours in trying to fix it. And it's also free, so why not use it? So I'll switch really quick to a demo. So this is a job I already have set up. I already have it installed. So I'll show you the configuration really quick. So what I did is I configured a Maven job to run a simple Maven project. It just does a quick clean and install. It's using the latest version of Maven. And I also have our new plugin configured, which is the Maven integration up here. And I included all of the scopes. So I want to know all the open source software that's being used, even in my test environment. So I just save that and build it. And what you see is all the Maven stuff going on. And then it already finished the Maven process and created that list. And it's sending that information to the match service now. And this is all the information we get back. So you can see some of these are matched, some of these are not. Actually, they were all matched. And this is all the information from the report is printed here. Any errors that will happen will also show up here. But you also get this Black Duck vulnerability report right in the UI, which shows you all that information. So you can see what licenses are under. If they're compound license, then all you have to do is hover over them, and you get that full list of licenses that it's under. And you also see any vulnerabilities that component may have. And this is all filterable to make it easy to look through. And if you want to learn more information, we also have other pages that you can go to that describe our actual product in detail and how that would help you. So I went through this really quickly. I'm sorry about that. Any questions? Really quick?
So the vulnerability scan is different than your regular source scan?
So we do have, this is very similar to one of our plugins that we already have for our proprietary product. The Code Center plugin we already have. It does a very similar thing, but if you're talking about our actual scanning product, it is very different. So what our scanning product does is it scans your code at a snippet level, and it does that matching. So if you went and copied and pasted code from somewhere online, it would match that. So you would know exactly where all of your code came from, even if it was just small parts. Yes. Yes. Sir?
Do you have plans to support scanning of Node.js, or do you support that in one of your products, the NPM packages?
Yes. So one of our products does do that. The Protext scan, which does the snippet level matching, already supports multi-languages. It supports Java, C, C++, a lot of other languages that I can't name off the top of my head. But we also have a lightweight scanning that does binaries and simple things like that. Yes, sir?
Hi. Yeah, the report looks good on the job. Do you have anything that can aggregate that report across multiple jobs?
With the free plugin, we do not. That could be a good improvement. But in our proprietary products, we do have aggregation of reports. And that would provide you a lot of information all in one place.
Is that included if you're a Protex customer, or is it on top of that?
If you're a Protex customer, I believe...
In other words, we already have that, so you're
Yeah.
talking about this Pro plugin
Yeah,
that
the Pro
costs
plugin.
additionally, yeah. Okay.
That report is not in Jenkins, but I believe you can get it in the actual Protex server.
You mean the aggregate or this one?
I think the aggregate, yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else? All right. Unfortunately, I don't know those details, but I will make sure that the Jenkins guys get the slides. Okay, yep. Perfect. Sorry for going through so quick. I was a little nervous. Is there anything else? We have time. One more time? All right. You like the Star Trek? Awesome. Thank you. If anybody else has more questions, feel free to come up to me. I'll hang out in the front here. Yeah. Thank you very much.